Grandma, where were you born?
Where was I born?
Yeah.
In Tucson.
In Tucson.
All my siblings were born in Tucson.
Yeah.
Art, Stella. Mm-hmm. My brother Art is still alive, barely. He's 91, I think. And he's pretty much comatose. He's in a wheelchair. He has 24-hour care. And so that's kind of bad.
In Tucson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was your eldest brother?
What?
Eldest brother? He was your oldest brother?
Yeah. He was a big star football player and went to U of A, and well, he was little. So he couldn't compete in college level. So, but in high school he was a real star. And he met Lois, and that was when they were at U of A. She was in my class.
Lois was?
She was my age.
Uh-huh.
She was from big money. I think her father was a vice president of DuPont.
A chemical
Yeah,
company.
Wow.
Ooh.
that was a big name. You know, DuPont. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It was
Totally.
I don't even know if they exist.
No,
They do.
They do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. DuPont makes a lot of the chemicals used in laboratories too.
Yeah.
A big factory in Virginia.
So you had three siblings?
What?
3 siblings? Art, Rudy, Stella,
Me.
and you.
Yeah.
And you were the third?
Yeah, and I was a baby for a long time because Rudy is, I think, 11 years younger than I am.
Why did you have a fun childhood?
What?
Why did you have a fun childhood?
Oh, because of growing up and, my grandfather owned that big ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lived for the weekends to go to the ranch and ride horses and swim in the canals and
Yeah.
all of that. So
nice.
and the culture of rancher is very interesting. It's kind of brutal, the way they treat the animals. But I was a kid and I didn't think of it at that time. But now I look back and think of it.
The Bambis.
Yeah.
What were they like?
They, have you ever seen this cows slaughtered?
No, have you?
Yeah. That's what I would see. My grandfather, my mother's side of the family were very gregarious, drinkers, and if you ever saw the movie with Rock Hudson, it was about a Texas ranch with money. People had a lot of money, and Liz Taylor, I can't remember. Anyway,
I'm not sure.
that was kind of the life the Gearys led. And they would have my grandfather had quarter horses. And I remember once a year he would bet his friend had thoroughbreds. And they would have this big race. And they, bet a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the quarter horse would always win, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But
Whoa.
that type of thing. And then they would have the barbecues.
Oh.
And that's where I see them slaughter a cow.
Oh.
So you'd eat what they slaughtered, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It was literally
kind of the dream.
fresh.
And I'm still
The
eating
freshest
what they do
barbecue.
to cows.
yeah.
Your sounds like your grandfather was kind of like a patriarch of the ranch. And
Oh, he was definitely the patriarch.
what was his name?
Eugenio. That's Gene.
Gene.
And the one that writes the books is Eugenio Jr.
Eugenio Jr.
He's the oldest one of that whole,
I see.
and he's a historian.
Yeah.
very arrogant, very handsome. I think he was married like 4 times.
Whoa. Yeah.
Your grandfather?
No,
Uncle.
my uncle.
Oh, Gene.
Yeah.
Right.
Gene Jr.
Uh-huh. And I remember my grandmother telling me stories that really made her mad. That when she married my grandfather, his mistress had a carriage better than hers, and she threatened to leave him.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So she got a better carriage?
Yeah.
That
Anita.
works.
Her name was Anita,
Anita.
and I'm very much. I was always. I hated her. And you know, the thing that's interesting is I was always told that I was just like her.
Your grandma.
Yeah. Because I'm pretty outspoken. You know, I always tell what I feel. And I don't take any crap from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I turned out just like she was.
Why didn't you like her?
She was mean. I thought she was mean.
Was it for all those reasons you listed?
But of course, there were some times that I did some very bad things. I remember at her house, there was it was white brick. Not white like this, but kind of a shade of white. And I got a crayon and drew all over it. So I was given a pail of hot water and soap and
Ooh.
told to
Clean
clean it up.
Right.
And the other time, oh God, this is really bad.
Oh no.
I always had the straight hair, and the little girl next door had these beautiful curls. Guess what I did?
You cut them off.
I cut them off.
When she was sleeping?
Your neighbor's hair?
The little girl hair.
Grandma.
Well, I
How
thought,
old are
you know what I thought? I
Good
thought
question.
that, for some reason or other, I thought that God, I was stupid. I thought that I could cut them off and put them on my head. And I swear, that's what I did. It wasn't to be mean.
Yeah.
I just thought that I
To
wanted
take
those.
them.
I wanted to have those curls.
Yeah.
And God, I was in trouble.
How old were you?
I think maybe about. Oh, and they were those little scissors that that come in the little girls' things that are just.
Oh yeah,
The little
Fiskars.
small-
Yeah.
Oh,
Snowing
those
ones.
horrible
Snowing
curls.
ones.
Yeah.
And she didn't even care.
So she was awake.
Oh yeah.
You just said, let's cut your hair.
I asked her if it was okay if I cut her curls, and she said yeah. So,
Oh, I see. You got.
so that's what I said. That was.
That was
I
more
s-
malicious than you.
That's
came
better.
tonight.
Yeah.
I said, can I have some of those curls? And she said, yeah. You're my friend or something.
That's
So,
sweet.
isn't that sweet? And so her mother didn't think it was
No,
so
I
sweet.
don't think so.
That was bad.
And this was your neighbor at the ranch or in Tucson?
That was in Tucson. They had the house in Tucson, my grandparents, and then they moved. They never really did move to the ranch. My grandfather would drive there every day, and I would go. I was his favorite grandchild, so I would go with him. And my treat was that he was going to take me to the drive-in and get me a hot dog because I loved hot dogs. And God, I was stupid. I would save the hot dog and eat the bun first because I wanted to save the best for last.
Aww.
And then I'd cry. I just cried because I couldn't eat the hot dog because I was so full.
Oh.
There was something wrong with me.
That's amazing.
And he'd get the biggest kick out of it. He said, Mina, don't eat the bread. You know, he'd tell me every time he'd get the biggest kick out of that. And I'd go home and I was crying, and my mother, first of all, she used to say, what's wrong with you? And so she didn't even ask. I was so
She
stupid.
knew.
God, that was pretty bad.
Wow. Man.
But I remember my parents, and this was when I was real young. They were in the 20s. You know, they'd make the
1920s.
gin in the bathtub. I remember that.
Wow.
Yeah.
They had a
The
friend, and
distillery in the bathtub.
I can't remember what the guy's name was. He would come, Herman, I think, and he would come and they'd make all this gin in the bathtub.
And then they would.
I was always very nosy, you know. I would always ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
I didn't understand, but I knew that what they were doing was wrong.
You knew it was wrong.
Yeah,
There was some secret about it. Right?
yeah. My mother was very beautiful, and
What was her name?
Lupe.
Oh, that's it.
Lupe.
Yeah.
Did you live with your grandpa?
What's that?
Did you live with your grandpa, or were they close to you?
Yeah, but I never lived with them.
Okay.
But they were, and I really like my dad's family too. He had a brother, and I really love Maita, which that book is
The
about
Pacheco. Yeah.
Oh.
Gertrudis, about the seamstress. She made the best apple pies and all this stuff, you know, and she made cookies for the kids. And my other grandmother just sat around and drank tequila. And that's why I guess I like tequila. I inherited it.
Your other grandmother.
Yeah, my grandmother Aguirre. And she was mean.
So your mom's side was a Yuri.
Yeah. And my
Okay.
dad's side was Pacheco.
Okay.
And the Pachecos were my uncle and my dad went to the University of Arizona and got degrees. They were well, you know, and my mother never, she there was no discipline in that family. She slept until noon, so she only went to 8th grade.
Oh wow.
Wow.
She didn't,
Wow.
Your mother?
she wasn't told to get up and go to school. The kids did what they wanted to do.
Wow. Can you imagine?
And they had a wonderful, beautiful house, I remember. And let's see, it was my mother and then Uncle Gene and Uncle Henry and, let me think, Weenie and Alfonso. 5 kids in that family.
Wow.
And they were and the men were just very handsome, not just Uncle Gene, but Uncle Henry I thought was even better looking. Very handsome.
Ranchers.
Yep. So we used to go out there and ride horses, and I loved that.
Yeah. Sounds amazing.
When did you learn to ride?
What?
When did you learn to ride?
I don't know. You just were put on a horse and said,
Go.
"Go." Yeah. And I had a picture of Art. He was 2 years old, and he was sitting in the saddle.
It's so great.
Because he was kind of like the heir, right?
Yeah.
Ella's son. Eugenio Jr.
When did Catholic school happen?
What's that?
When did Catholic school happen for you?
We went to Catholic school from 1st grade to 6th grade.
Wow, formative years.
Yeah, and so my parents thought that was it. And then we went to public school in junior high.
Uh-huh. Wow, that must have been different.
Yeah, it was.
Whoa.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the junior high.
Freedom.
Yep. And so it was good. But, you know, the whole ranch thing was just something we all, Art, Stella, and I just lived for the weekends to go out there.
Yeah.
I remember when I'd spend the night. I didn't like my grandmother Gary. She was, like I say, mean. But I liked my grandfather, so they'd babysit. So I'd have to spend the night there. And so I'd get up at early, and my grandfather would come down, and he was like all blurry-eyed from drinking all night. Probably whoring around. I hate to say that. And he'd come down, and I'd say, "Buenos dias, pa grande." He wouldn't say one word. He'd go over and open a cupboard, pull out a bottle of tequila, and he'd turn around and say, "Buenos dias, Mina." And that classic?
What an interaction. Little granddaughter. Grandpa. Buenos dias. Eye opener.
Isn't that amazing?
It is
Something out of a film.
Yeah.
It's such a great scene
Yeah.
to imagine.
Oh my god.
They were drinking all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
All day.
Uh-huh. And my grande was the patriarch, and she was mean. In fact, we would spend one weekend with the Gary grandmother and one weekend with my dad's family. And this is awful. It was Art, Stella, and I, and we would go, and the first thing she wanted to do was give Art an enema. And I remember Art running. He would be running. He'd be running around the house like his hands across his butt. And Stella and I would hide. We knew what the deal was, so we'd hide under the bed or in the closet. And Art would never hide soon enough, and he got caught every
The
time.
grandmother wanted to give the grandchildren
Yeah.
animals.
Wanted to clean him out. That's what she said. You had to have an enema every day. You had to get cleaned out.
Every day?
Every day. She did an enema every day.
No wonder you thought she was mean. Coming at you with an animal.
Stella and I'd hide under the beds or in the closet. Art was so stupid. We tell him, run, and hide as soon as you get there. We hated to go to the Grandma Gary's house.
This was every other week?
Yeah. The other week, Grandma Pacheco made an apple pie for us.
You like Grandma Pacheco.
And the whole
Grandma
thing-
Geary's enema, Grandma.
Your present was getting an enema. God,
She probably did it out of love.
Oh, I don't know. It's terrible. She probably had a hangover and tried to take it out on somebody.
Wow.
That's really incredible. Wow.
Did they live in town or were they out in the country?
No, they lived in Tucson,
Okay.
and they never lived out at the ranch.
Yeah.
The sons lived out at the ranch. There were 2 houses, and Uncle Henry and Uncle Alfonso are the ones that they were the slave drivers.
Yeah.
What about your father? What about Lupe's your mother, right?
Yeah, and my father he was a businessman,
Businessman.
and he owned a furniture store, and
In Tucson.
in Tucson.
Wow.
And he was very well educated, and my mother wasn't very nice to him. She always thought he didn't make a success of himself.
Mm.
Because, he didn't really make that much money. And my mother was brought up as a spoiled, rich kid,
I
know?
see. The ranch.
Yeah. And she never had she didn't even go to school. Like I said, they never got her up to go to school or anything.
Right.
How did she fall in love with your father, or how did they meet?
I think there was a dance or something. There was something. It was all the Spanish or Mexican culture that where you had. It was called tardeadas. It means that the afternoons. I can't remember what the
TARDIS?
what
TARDIS?
it was.
Hardest this afternoon, yeah.
Yeah, but it was called tardeadas.
Huh.
It was a social thing,
Yeah.
and I think that they met there at a dance. My mother was very beautiful.
Yeah.
She was a pain in the butt, I'll tell you.
Oh.
She was always, she was a rich, spoiled kid, And when she got married, and my dad didn't make very much money, but he was always it was kind of a mismatch, I think. But my dad really loved my mother a lot.
I see. One-sided kind of
Yeah.
relationship.
And they were drunks. They drank so much, like I told you, they made gin in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And they drank an awful lot.
Wow.
I remember fights when I got older that we were living on in Grant Road, and I must have been first grade or something. I can't remember how old I was. And my mother and dad would come home from a party, and they'd be fighting. It's from drinking, you know. And my mother would kick my dad out of the bedroom. And so guess who would make him a bed on the couch? Me. I always felt sorry for him. I just, you know, I always did. So I had to make a bed for him.
Yeah.
Did you spend a lot of time with your dad?
Yeah.
Do things together?
Yeah.
What did you guys do as a family? Mostly at the ranch, or did you guys go out together?
We did the ranch thing. My mother didn't like the ranch thing. They were in the 20s. You know, that's what they did. They had parties and drank a lot, like you see in the movies in the 20s.
Yeah.
That was just what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my father, when my father came to Colorado, and that's where he died. And he came with a friend, and he got sick, and he was going to die. He could have had some kind of a procedure, and I forgot what it was. And I said, no, let's don't put Dad through that. He was already 85.
85.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a long life.
Yeah, and so I said to my sister, I'm not voting for that.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she wanted to do it. So the doctor came in, and I said, and Stella said, you know, we have a dispute here. And he said, your sister's right.
Wow.
You shouldn't be putting him through that. He's a gentleman. He should die with dignity. And so, but my dad, when he was real sick, he opened his eyes, and before he died, he said, looked at Stella and me, he said, you two were two of the biggest disappointments of my life, that you never finished college. And then he closed his eyes and died. Stella and I looked at him and said, oh!
Shit.
Wow. Whoa. Because he was very valued education.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I went for 2 years and then got married.
Yeah.
And then Stella went for 3 years and got married.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
he was very disappointed.
Wow.
He was a really good guy, I thought. Very smart. I had a really good childhood. My grandmother, on my dad's side, I used to love to go to her house. She was a gardener, and she had all this stuff in her backyard where she had put pieces of glass together. Where she lived next to what do you call it? Just a little dirt road. They ran by her house, and she'd pick up the glass that was there. And she made a little mound on it, and she put a statue of the Virgin Mary there. It was like a little prayer place.
Yeah, like a little shrine.
Yeah, a little shrine.
Nice.
And so I used to love to go there and play around that shrine. And I remember that was during the Depression, and they lived close to the railroad tracks, and so there were hobos that would come to the door, and she would feed them.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. How did the Depression affect like the furniture business? And, like,
Yeah, my dad lost his store.
Mm.
And then he was an accountant. He went to work for a big business as an accountant. So my mother always belittled him that he was a failure.
Hard to come up against the Great Depression.
Yeah.
That's pretty irrefutably tough.
And she was brought up, you know, like a rich little girl.
Yeah,
So
right. That kind of crash had never happened before.
yeah. So
Wow.
So wait, what was your youngest brother? The 11-year-old or younger than you?
Rudy.
So when Rudy came along, were the three siblings like very close, and Rudy was not so close, or?
Well, we had all left home.
Right, you guys were like teenagers slash.
I was a teenager,
Yeah. Wow.
And so I still talk. He lives here. He lives over
Phoenix?
in the valley in North Phoenix,
Oh wow.
on the west side Phoenix, I should say.
Okay.
And he's married, and he married 2 times. He married the first gal, and I really liked her, but she was a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and she had an affair with another teacher, so that was it.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had, he had 2 children by her.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got married to Judy, and I think they have 2 girls.
Wow.
And Jessie is the oldest one, and she's a trainer. I think she must be gay because she has a companion,
Mm-hmm.
and she's muscular, and she looks very
Butch.
mannish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Butch. And the other one, Victoria, she's a spy.
Oh my God.
What?
And her husband's a spy. They went to spy school in Prescott. There's a school in Prescott where they train spies. And that's where she met him.
I had no idea that training process was transparent. Surprising. It was like, here's spy school.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they were based in Washington for a long time.
Do you mean the CIA? Or the FBI?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so now they're going to, where did I tell you? Manila or someplace in, I forget where they're going now. They're visiting here now before they go overseas.
Oh.
So Rudy won't see her for 2 or 3 years.
Wow. She's a spy.
Travis is her husband's name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's gotta be spies, so. Yeah, that's interesting. Rudy.
Didn't you go to Mexico to take Spanish lessons when you were an adult? Like Mexico City?
No.
You like danced with mariachi band?
Oh,
There's a picture of you.
Yeah. I went to, in fact, I went to a junior college in a public university or something in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And I took Spanish from Francisco.
Nice.
And when I walked in, and his greeting was, "If you don't know Spanish, you'll know Spanish because I'm the greatest Spanish teacher you'll ever know." And he was.
Yeah. That's great.
And so he planned a trip to Mexico, and it was just when I got a divorce, I didn't have any money, so what else is new? And so then he said, what it was going to be, so somehow or other he scraped up the money and went.
That's great.
And it was a blast.
Yeah.
And he did keep teaching the classes, and we'd go out and dance till 3 a.m, and we'd go to bed, and we were in this little cult of Francisco and his friend Juan, and there were 2 other people, and so we would fly around in a little private plane to different destinations to see stuff, and the other students didn't like it.
Oh, like not all the students went in this private
No,
plane.
there was just 3 women and 3 teachers.
Oh.
It was great.
That sounds great.
That sounds fun.
And so one of the students said to me, she said, anytime you and Juana want to use my room, it's fine.
Mm.
Well, Juan's 2 kids were along on that trip. I'm sure I'm going to have an affair with Juan when his 2 kids are there.
Oh my God.
I said, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But we had fun because
Yeah.
we would dance all night long.
Oh, that's great.
We
Wow.
really had a great time. And we saw some beautiful country. We went to the Mayan country,
Nice.
in the private plane, which those other students didn't do.
Just as a reminder.
Yeah,
Other
How big
students.
was the class? Like how many?
there was about 15 of us.
15, and then three of the students
12
would go off every night.
Yeah,
And the other students.
No,
do.
all of you would go out dancing.
no.
Oh.
I mean, they could go dancing, but they were part of our little group.
Did they stay in a hotel?
I don't know.
And where's like a private jet?
It
A
was.
private plane is. Who owned that? Francisco?
I don't know who paid for it. I didn't care. I know I didn't.
Yeah.
And I thought I'm going to die on this plane. And I thought, oh well.
That was right after the divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like a real opportunity to
Yeah,
Well,
you saw the
fine
picture
life,
of me
cut
with the
loose.
mariachis.
Yeah, it's actually right over there.
Yeah.
It's
Was
a
it-
great photo.
Was it one of those like 6-seater propeller planes that you were just like going around?
Yeah.
Nice ago. Nice.
It's fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
We went to Puerto Vallarta, and then we went, we just hopped around.
How long were you there?
It was about 4 weeks. That's a long time.
So did he teach you Spanish? Was he the best teacher in the world, like he said he was?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The way you learn Spanish is speaking it all the time.
sure.
And if you don't speak it, you know, that's the trouble. I'm taking Spanish now at this rec center, but I don't have anybody to speak it to at home.
Yeah. It's hard to keep it in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you speak Spanish when you were a little girl?
Yeah.
At the ranch, did everybody speak Spanish?
I grew up in a bilingual family. When we got older, we didn't speak Spanish at home as much. You know, we just. In fact, when Art and Stella started first grade, they got a note from the nuns saying, "Teach your children English. You live in the United States now."
Whoa.
Whoa, the nuns said that.
Yeah.
So it begins.
Oh. It's an old idea, I
Yeah.
guess.
That
they're,
one.
still, they're still saying that today.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. That's
Never ends.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. What did your parents think of that note?
Well, the kids were going to get expelled, so they
Yeah.
had to do it.
Yeah.
They had to start speaking English at home, and so that's how I learned English
Yeah.
faster than the older kids did.
Right, right. You were on that
Because I was
cusp.
younger, you know, and
What was it like as a student at the Catholic school? Was it very strict?
yes, I hated it.
How were the nuns as teachers?
They were terrifying because nobody wanted to sit in the front row, you know, the front desk, because they had a ruler and they'd go like this when they wanted to get attention of the class. And if you were sitting there, you wanted to make sure that you went like this, that they wouldn't hit your hand.
You had to have your hands up on the desk
Well, yeah,
while you were listening?
yeah.
Wow.
They were very strict. And so I remember have you ever heard me talk about Dennis Moran?
Oh, that name sounds familiar.
He was a very
Moran.
good friend, and he came. I remember he was very handsome even when he was that age in 4th grade. He came and he was his mother. I think his father died, or maybe his mother was never married. I don't know what the story was, but he came to school, and he was very athletic. And I remember we used to play dodgeball. And he was so mean. He would hit that ball so hard you'd knock you off your feet.
Oh, gosh.
Vicious.
Vicious.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where I met Dennis Moran. And then I went to Catholic school. We went to Catholic school from 1st grade, like I told you, to 6th grade, and then went to public schools. Mm-hmm. And so I lost track of Dennis Moran. But then he, I think, went to the seminary after a certain class after a certain grade, and he didn't like it. There was a lot of sexual abuse there.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he never said he had been abused, but I kind of had a feeling he had been. So.
That thing was very hard to admit. I mean, it still is, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
Wow.
He was a brilliant man, and he became a professor at ASU.
Oh, he is, okay.
And then he was such a drinker that he was an absolute alcoholic. So they fired him.
Huh.
And he had a neighborhood bar where he hung out, and they told his wife that he wasn't supposed to come back because he'd even soil his pants.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he wasn't,
So
he wasn't, you know, he was just lost completely. So he got sick and he died. And I can't remember, he was pretty young when he died.
Wow.
They have Dennis Jr. and then they have one child that they adopted, and he's a good guy, and they have a daughter, and they live in Scottsdale. And Jackie just called me not too long ago, and but I have no desire to see her. Because I told you when Christopher had his stroke, she never even bothered to call to see how he was.
Oh, that's her.
So that was the end of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
It's never too late to try. Yeah, it's hard though.
Well, you better get to your game. Let me get the kitchen.
Oh.
I'll
yeah.
get the kitchen.
Yeah, we can help you clean up.
Oh, yeah.
That's fascinating, Grandma.
yeah, thanks for
Love these stories.
thanks for sharing.
I've had an interesting life, haven't I?
You have
Yeah.
you're quite the ball buster, Grandma.
Childhood. And you remember these like relationships. It's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like these little snapshots. He's
And
very
I remember Deborah Dunsey, the one that I tell you this is my best friend that lives here that has
Deborah, yeah.
She came to school, and her mother had been divorced, and so she came to school, and she was wearing high tops, and I was one that had to wear high tops to school, and we were in second grade already, so we hated it. So we became friends because we were both in the bathroom, putting the high tops down. You could
Down
hardly
the
walk
toilet?
because it hurt so bad. But I wanted to be a big girl, and so did she. So we became best of friends.
Shared suffering, right?
Yeah.
Brings you closer together.
Listen for you because you know you don't eat with them, and you have to eat Monday night with them because that's when you have the meetings. And so other than that, you have to make an effort to be in contact with them. And I had friends from Tucson High, you know, like my friend Deborah, but she joined the same sorority I did. So I don't know, I just, it was a good experience, but I wouldn't say it was necessary. And it was very expensive for my parents to pay for that. But they were so thrilled that I had been picked for a sorority.
Oh yeah.
Because it was a real status thing.
Oh.
I've never been a status person. So, anyway, and I was a town girl, and I was in love with Jerry Ludwig.
How long had you dated him at that point?
What?
How long had you dated him at that point?
Well, I met him in high school. He was
Yeah.
a senior in high school, and I was a junior. And then we graduated, and his mother sent him away to college, so he wouldn't be interested in me. I mean, you know, to get him away from me, because you know she didn't want us to get serious. And what he would do, she sent him to a Catholic school in New Mexico, and he would hitchhike home on the weekends.
Wow.
And he would stay at a good friend's house. And So she didn't even know that he was doing that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess I just went to college for 2 years, and that was, I told you, the biggest disappointment for my father.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
My sister and I both. So that was about it, and I was real happy in Tucson, and then when I married Jerry, we traveled all over. You know, like I told you, we moved 26 times. Or something.
That's an adventure.
It was, and my kids, you know, it was hard on them because they would go to school for maybe 6 months and then we'd move and they'd have to go to school for another. I think the longest time we were in one school district was 2 years.
2 years.
Where was that at?
I can't remember.
Maybe McLean.
I think it was McLean.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark was a senior in high school. And we moved. And he was like, he was a senior in high school, and that's awful to move a kid when you're a senior in high school.
Oh,
He was a star athlete in football and baseball and everything. He was the athlete of the family.
ouch.
And so he came to me and he said that he had found a family, one of his friends' families, said they would take him in for a senior in high school. And so I told Budwig that, and he said, no, he belongs with his family. No discussion.
Yeah.
So we moved him to, we moved to Colorado, and he went to school, but he was a loner, and he didn't talk to anybody, didn't have any friends. And I have pictures of him where he would take the dog, Lola, and the dog would go camping for the weekend, and he would go to the different mountains and camp by himself for the weekend. And I was worried sick all the time. And so his father said he needs time to figure it out. And so then when he went to high school, he was a very good athlete, I said. And so he decided, he met Laura Ware. And she told him, you know, why didn't he try out for baseball? And he did, and so he was a very good baseball player, and he was on the first team, and then he was a football player. And so that's what it got him through. So then he went to Boulder and went to engineering school. Well, I wanted him to go to, there was an engineering school, but that's what their specialty was. And he did get it accepted there, but he decided to go to Boulder. And that's where he met Linda.
How was it for you moving around?
What's that?
How was it for you moving around a lot?
At first I almost had a nervous breakdown.
Ooh.
And I was crying, and Ludwig came home and I was crying and threw a fit and everything, and he just looked at me and he said, I'll resign tomorrow from work. And I thought, you know what, grow up, little Mina. You know, you've been a baby too long. And so I told him, you know, I said, I apologize for acting the way I did, so we'll do what you want to do.
Wow.
And so that's what it. And I just thought of it. I told myself, I'll be an adventure every place I go. And I had been born and raised in Tucson, and why not take advantage of different cultures and whatnot? So that's what I decided to do. That was my way to get through with it. And I met some wonderful friends, and it was good. And he was always a good father, and he was always a homemaker. He always went ahead. Did I tell you this?
Oh, no.
He always went ahead before we were supposed to move. He'd go like 2 weeks ahead of time before we were supposed to move, and he would find a place for us to live. And it was always in a really nice place. And it would start out with, when Ellen was little, I think it was 2-bedroom it was in a house, but the lady had a guest house, and she lived in the guest house, and she rented out her main house. And so the kids went to school. The school was right across the street, and then Evelyn was, baby then, and so then I just got in the mentality that was the way of life. And getting back to Mark, he met Laura Ware, and then he went out for baseball, and he was a star, and he was a good football player. He was the athlete of the family, so it all worked out. And it was hard for me to leave Colorado. We had a really neat house there, and it was, well, I don't know if I told you, but then when I got a divorce, I married Rollin, and he had this house, and he had the one in Colorado. Well, I had the one in Colorado, and he had this one. And he went back and forth with his marriage before me. And I said, I don't like this. I feel like I don't belong anyplace, so let's just move here. And I really like it here.
Yeah.
The weather's so much better. And the summers are, I grew up here, so I'm used to being a desert rat.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And when I grew up, we didn't have air conditioning. We had what do you call it? The fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and the heat's never really bothered me. So it worked out for me.
How long were you married before you had kids?
Not very long. I think Deborah was. In fact, my mother was really nervous because I think Deborah was born like 9 months and 1 week after we were married.
Oh.
My mother, God.
Your mom was so
She was like,
cruel,
people
terrifying.
would, la gente. She'd say, la gente's going to say this. La gente, that means people are going to say.
Oh.
I said, you know what, Mom? I don't give a shit what the la gente means.
Yeah.
And that's always been kind of my attitude. As long as I'm legal in what I do, and I wasn't doing anything wrong, but so, yeah. It was a good life with Goodwood, but it just didn't work out. He had an accident. Did I tell you all this?
I'm not sure.
When we lived in Evergreen, he used to walk the dog after dinner, and it used to be a circle around our house. It was just a short jaunt around the house, the neighborhood. And he got hit. But one of the neighbors called me on the street where I lived. They said, your husband, Jerry, has been in an accident.
Ugh, it's a bad call.
So I went, and there were lights shining,
Oh
and
my God.
the dog wouldn't leave him.
Oh God.
Lola wouldn't leave him. And so when she saw me, I got her away from him.
Yeah.
And because the paramedics couldn't go to him because the dog was guarding him.
Oh my God.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Is that a German Shepherd? Lola?
Yeah, Lola was a German Shepherd. And so anyway, they took him to the hospital, and it's a miracle he didn't die because he had some kind of a concussion, and he was really never the same after that. His attitude after he got hit was, life's so short, I'm going to do what I want to do. And that was pretty much the end of our marriage. Started messing around, and
So before that, it didn't have those problems?
no,
But really the accident.
yeah, the accident was very devastating to him, and he was sick of responsibilities of, house payments and kids and all of this stuff, and so he was going to do what he wanted to do.
What happened? Did you get hit by a car?
Drunk driver.
What?
Drunk driver.
Oh, it was a drunk driver?
Yeah, drunk driver.
Wow.
And I went up to the drunk driver. So when I got to where he was, like I said, when the neighbor called me, I went to where the scene of the accident was, and I called him the son of a bitch and all this, and so the trooper said, just calm down, and so they took him to the hospital, and sure enough, he had some brain damage. And it's just a miracle. You know, his rehab was just unbelievable. It took a long time. It was about a year and a half of rehab, I think.
Wow.
And he was never the same. That's what he said. You know, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I said, okay, I guess I wasn't in his plans, and that's what it was.
Man.
Huge shift.
His personality changed, or his inhibitions were gone.
Yeah.
Did you have to go to a trial for the drunk driver?
Oh, yeah, what I was telling you, when I got to the scene of the accidents, the cops were there, you know, the highway patrol and all that, and flashing lights, and the driver was there. And I went up to him, and I got him by the shoulder, and I said, "You son of a bitch." And the trooper said, "That's not necessary, lady." And I said, "Yes, it was."
It's your husband.
So then he went through the whole rehab thing, and so that's the way it was.
That was in, where was that? Colorado?
That was an Evergreen.
Yeah.
How old was everybody? How old were all the kids?
Mark was a senior, and Christopher. Oh, this is really. I was so conniving. I cannot believe it. I waited till Christopher graduated. Can I tell you the story?
Yeah.
That we went in separate
No.
cars.
Yeah, separate cars at the graduation.
Yeah,
And you changed the locks.
yeah. When I got home, well, I didn't change the locks right then and there, but I got home and I said, "You're out of here."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I said, I waited for the last kid to get paid for in college.
Yeah.
I was very conniving.
Oh, you waited for.
Yeah,
Well, it's also survival back
Yeah,
in the
it
day.
is.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
you
that was
had
Gotta care for the
college,
babies.
Like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I waited for him to. And Christopher was bad. He was on drugs and everything else, and his roommates, I can't remember the name of it, Danielle. She would call me, she'd say, "Mrs. Budwig, this is Danielle." And I thought, "Oh my God, here it comes." And she said, "Christopher's, I don't know if he was going to be awake because he's been on drugs. I don't know if he's going to be," I said, "Would you go shake him and see if he's alive?" And she said, "He's going to be mad at me." I said, "Well, he always." So she shaking me. She said, "Well, he's moving." It was awful. And so anyway, the last day of graduation, the day of graduation, we drove in different cars, like I told you, to the graduation ceremony. And when we got home, I said, "You're out of here. Done. That's it."
Yeah.
It's a terrible time, but
That was Christopher's college graduation.
yeah,
College
Where'd you
graduation.
go? You go to CSU?
yeah. He didn't get into Boulder. He's the only one that didn't get into Boulder. I would say Christopher was the smartest one in the family. He was really a smart kid.
Well, he has
He's
wit
very.
like no one.
He does.
Like no one else.
What?
His wit
Oh,
is unbeatable.
isn't
It
he
is.
He
funny?
doesn't stop. He doesn't
It's
stop.
very sharp.
Yeah.
Very sharp.
He said some things that are
Oh
Just
my
the
God, he
funniest
was
thing
so
I've
It's
ever
bad.
so funny.
Got a lot.
I always was so confused why all the cousins called my dad Uncle Funny, because every time I saw Chris, I was like, this is the funniest things anyone has ever said. I mean, yeah. I think that may have shifted. I don't know how it's
Different
been a long
brands
time,
of
but
humor.
Yeah, I think perhaps there's also like the cynical brand.
They were all bad. Deborah was horrible.
You know what you're describing is adolescence.
Yeah.
Jerry was probably horrible, but your father was probably horrible, but he was smart. So I probably didn't know half
He
the
was,
stuff he
I
did.
think he was extremely private. That's my understanding of it.
What?
He seems to have been extremely private.
Yeah.
His
Oh,
whole
God.
life. His whole life, yeah.
Yeah, he's a very private
Yeah.
person.
About like being external.
Did he change too after? I remember he had a head injury
Yep, he
too,
said
right?
he was never the same. He was unconscious for like a day, right?
Yeah.
You got hit in the head with a knife?
Was that the knife one?
No, he got hit by a car. I think.
When did he get hit by a car?
My husband was hit by a car.
What did-
Oh my
Now
God,
you-
what happened to
got hit.
Jerry?
Or was that the knife thing?
Jerry had a serious head
Concussion.
injury,
He
right?
had a concussion.
Yeah.
As a child.
Oh, yeah.
dad.
Let's see. They were playing.
You know the knife.
They
Was that
were
the
playing
chicken? They were
something.
playing chicken?
No, I can't remember. They were playing ball or something. God, what a nightmare. No wonder I forgot everything.
Yeah,
You suppressed it.
Yeah.
I deliberately put it out of my
So
mind.
you are.
He and Jerry were always fighting. And so I can't remember.
Well, I remember the knife fight story. I don't think it's the concussion story.
The knife fight.
But they were playing horseshoe
I
throwing
want to hear
knives.
all of these.
Yeah,
stories.
tell us about the knife fight.
Oh yeah, they see what their dad would do. He'd work the boys to death. And in fact, Jerry, your father, told my Jerry that if he ever touched him again, he was going to kill him. And that was a good thing that he did that, because Budwig, they work at the boys, and then the boys would get in a fight, and then Budwig would interfere to separate them and all of that. And that's where, you know, he smashed your dad's face in the dirt, and your dad got up and said, if you ever touch me again, I'll kill you. And I was, I was happy that happened, that he stood his ground.
Yeah.
There was no reason for Budwig to do something like that.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
The knife fight was between my dad and Mark, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah, they were playing knives.
Oh.
with horseshoe. Like instead of playing horseshoe, they had knives. They were like throwing it, and one of them, I forget who, but like, say, you know, my dad's knife, he threw it and it slipped, and the back of the knife hit my Uncle Mark. It could be the other way around. And Mark perceived
It was the
that
other way
to be
around.
intentional.
Your dad
Okay.
was the one that came in with the...
It was. Okay, so...
Yeah, and so he came in and with the knife stuck in the middle of
No,
his
that's
forehead.
what, so my dad accidentally hit Mark with the back of his knife, and Mark thought it was intentional and turned around and threw the knife at my dad. And he's still
It lodged in his head.
yeah,
Yeah.
lodged in his head.
So he walks in. I'm washing the dishes, and then there's Jerry with a.
He came in the door.
Yeah,
And he said he was blinded with blood. He couldn't see. He was
yeah, right.
blinded.
And then we had insurance, federal insurance, but I had to drive to Georgetown.
Oh, shh.
I wasn't the medical center wasn't. I had to drive to Georgetown with a kid with a knife in the middle of his head, with other screaming kids in the car that, oh, I don't want to do this. And I said, shut the fuck up. And I'm driving to Georgetown, which is 2 single lanes on a windy road
Oh my god.
over by the Potomac River. And I get to the clinic, and fortunately they got that knife out without making him blind.
Yeah. Because it wasn't quite in the middle actually. It was very, very close.
So I went home, and Budwig got home and real happy, and I'm done. And I'll be goddamn if you don't change the insurance to local. You're going to be stuck with somebody with a knife and behind on their head, and so that's it. And I'm going to leave. And I don't know where I was going to go. I think I was just going to go on the street and be a street person. I didn't care. I was sick of husbands, and Budwig was having an affair with his secretary, Billy.
True insult to injury.
She would call me up in the morning, and she said, or mid-afternoon, she said, Mina, this is Billy. And she said, you know, Jerry's having a really bad day, so I want you to be nice to him when he gets home. I want to
Oh my
I
god.
want to strangle him.
Oh my god.
Can you believe
I
that?
I cannot believe it. Like it's so crazy.
Beyond words, yeah.
Oh.
And she was married too. She was married to a really handsome, good-looking guy. She liked handsome, good-looking men. I don't blame her for that. And and Hal was his name.
Hal.
Hal. And Hal divorced her.
Mm.
And so, I forgot what else happened.
Yeah.
I said, I'm out of here. I'm going to get stuck with the kids. That's it. So we worked it out. Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know how my dad blacked out, but he said he was unconscious for like at least a few hours.
Mhm.
And he said he was never the same after that. I don't know
Yeah,
what
and I would
happened.
go like this. Can you see my finger?
Oh, from the knife?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
afraid,
Right.
I was afraid to pull it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shocking image to see your child with a knife in their neck. Woo.
It was interesting.
Oh, but that-
Got dark, yeah.
Got dark.
yeah.
That was good.
Oh, nice. The lentils are weird. I don't like them. But we also sat in the car for a while.
Satisfied?
Oh yeah. Deliciously. Loved it.
Can't go to bed. It's too early.
Oh yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
actually gonna play that game again.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
liked it a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna play the scary game.
Spooky.
Spooky music.
I'm not getting
Spooky.
smudged.
The hair off my arm. I mean, it was.
Backfired?
Because of gunpowder?
I don't know what it was, but I thought I was going to die.
Mm.
So that was the end of gun shooting for me.
So that was the only gun, like Civil War relic.
Yeah, it was probably an old gun, I don't know.
Where did he fight? Do you know?
What?
Where did Grandpa's dad fight? In World War One?
Where did what? Grandpa's what?
Was it Budwig's dad who fought in World War One? Is that what you said?
No, I think it was his granddad.
Granddad.
His grandfather fought World War I.
And his father died when he was very young.
Hmm.
And I think he was like early 30s. So he was his mother was a single mom,
Yeah.
crazy as a loon, but
Oh
well. she wanted him to. The main thing she wanted was him to graduate
Mm.
from a university, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, I'm glad those days are over. Oh God.
That's many years of raising kids. Because there's a big gap between my mom and Mark, right?
Not really.
How long is it?
Well, let's see. Deborah and then Jerry was real close.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had Mark. So, yeah, the three older ones were pretty close together.
Hmm.
And then there was Ellen and Christopher were the cabooses, I used to call them.
The caboose.
That's cute.
And by the time Christopher came around, I was so exhausted. He used to go around with his. He was started walking at 9 months.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he was wearing a diaper, and he would run around at 9 months old with his dirty diaper, and I just didn't even care.
It was brown.
You know what he would do? When we would have a lot of parties, he'd go around and he'd drink all the leftover liquor. I caught him doing that. He was bad from the very beginning.
Chris. Did you guys ever go on like a full family vacation with all 5 kids?
We could never afford it, so our vacation was a camping.
Yeah.
And I hated it because I had to prepare all the food that we were going to take and that. And then when we got home, the only thing they did was unload the car and just leave it there, everything there. And so I had to.
No.
It was awful. I hated it.
They just left
I
it.
hate that too.
They left it all there.
Sleeping bags, you name it, trash.
They just bring it out of the car into the.
I finally just said, I'm not going camping anymore. So if you guys want to go camping, you prepare it, and you can go without me, and it'll be a little vacation for me.
Yeah.
And they never went camping again.
Because they couldn't without your support.
They didn't want to do all the work.
No. No, they didn't.
And then, Budwig and I would drink so much. I mean, we get out there and, we had a little pup tent. We'd get as far away as we could from the kids. And we would drink. And so Budwig, one time, he had to go to the bathroom, and they actually had bathrooms there. So he got up from the bedroll, and he didn't come back, and and I said, finally, I guess I'm through with him. And I didn't even know where to go to look for him. And he comes back, and he's soaking wet. And there were these ponds. And he fell in the pond. And it's a miracle he didn't drown. I mean, it's a miracle because he was drunk.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Who's this?
Budwig.
This was your grandpa, Budwig.
But
And so he was all wet,
He
and I
fell
was
into the
annoyed he
pond.
was so wet. I said, get out of the tent. You're so wet.
he had to change.
God, I don't know how we survived. I don't know how we survived all those kids.
5 kids.
It's really a lot.
And by the time I had the last 2, I didn't care what they did.
Yeah.
And so Ellen, I think she was pretty bad, but she was very sure of what she was doing, and she was smart, Christopher was hopeless. He always was.
He's a smart guy. but
When
he
we
must
would
have
have
manifested.
parties, one of the things was when he was that old that he was just in diapers still and go around. After we have a party, you know how people put their drinks that they don't finish. He'd go around and drink all the drinks.
As a child?
Yeah, oh yeah. He was a toddler. Just, what are you doing? He's just like. I mean, I could have been arrested for child abuse. Like, my child at 2 years old was drunk. Oh, God. It was not funny. Oh, my God. It was terrible.
The little face you made.
Yeah.
Oh,
He'd go
man.
finish all the shots and everything.
Was there an episode when you guys went to like the Catholic church and there was some incident when you were late or something? Like, I hear about that sometimes.
I can't remember.
There was some episode where the priest like scolded the family.
Yeah, I think so.
What was that? Do you remember?
I can't remember that. I think it was Father
Possibly.
Green, the Monsignor.
Mom talks about that sometimes.
Yeah. I think he scolded us for being late. I think that's the last time we went.
Yeah.
And the kids hated to go to church, but we said, "Why are we going? Everybody hates to go." I said, "You know what? I don't really give a F-U-C-K. I'm not going either." I hate it too.
That was the end.
That was the end of it.
Y'all hated going, but you just went.
And then the priest calls you out. Oh, God.
How embarrassing is
It's a
that?
struggle.
It's a fucking minefield.
And he was a pastor at our church. And I went to Catholic school from first grade to 6th grade, and then my parents thought we should get more, other than just religion, go to a public school. So I went to 6th grade. After 6th grade, I went to a public school, junior high. And that's when Budwig went to the Catholic school. And he was bad. I mean, one day he decided he was going to leave, and the nun tried to stop him, and he knocked her down. And mowed her down and kept walking out.
Ooh.
I wonder what the punishment for that was.
Yeah.
Probably pretty bad.
Yep.
Probably bad.
In fact, when we were getting married, the Father Green was our pastor, like I say, and he is the one that I chose to give the ceremony. So he went to the reception, and he said to Budwig, "Congratulations," and he said, and what did he say to me? "And good luck, Wilhelmina."
Ooh. Whoa. What a
And
blessing.
I needed that luck too. I found out that I needed that.
Oh.
But Budwig had a strange childhood. He had, just a single mom. And she was at work all the time.
She was a banker, right? Like a teller?
She was she was I think it was called something, the one that does
Typist?
a dressographer. I think that's what you
Stenographer?
send out the statements
At the bank.
at the bank. And she was the only one that had that job at the time. And then the bank grew, and she was weird. She was really crazy. But she saw her son graduate, so that was what she wanted.
Yeah.
But when I went to high school, there was only 2 high schools. One that was out where the farms were. We used to call them, the people that went to that school, Hicks.
Hicks.
And there was Tucson High, and that was the only 2 schools. And so my brother and sister went to Tucson High, and my sister was a star tennis player, and my brother was a big football, baseball star and everything. And there I came, so I decided I was going to do something, and I became, worked on the what do you call it, the yearbook of whatever it was called, of the class.
The yearbook, yeah.
Yearbook. So I got on that and went out and sold subscriptions for the. You had to go out and get money for people sign up for businesses to sign up for helping to pay for the yearbook,
Oh, yeah.
and I hated that.
Yeah.
So then I finally did some other things, and then I became a managing editor for that. So that was my claim to.
That's cool.
That's a good thing to do during school.
Yeah,
I
yearbook.
bet you learned a lot.
Yep.
Like Chris said, you probably were the smarter one. Yeah.
Well, Art was always very smart, and he was the star of the family,
Art was a star.
Yeah, my mother, because he was a football player.
Yeah.
And she never liked my sister. She was abusive to my sister.
Really?
Yeah.
Your sister?
Usually, if it like
Abusive.
for a day,
Yeah, she'd hit her.
that's not what
I could
got
never
for,
understand
Your
why my
mom did?
dad
the flavor.
didn't do something about it.
Yeah.
And,
That's
I
good
used
advice. I
to
didn't-
hide in the
I thought you
closet.
meant for the adobo.
She didn't come after you?
But that's good to know.
No, she never
Only
did.
the
Your
oldest
name.
sister.
Yeah.
Like,
So good.
And I think it's because I don't know why she hated my sister. I think it was
Yeah,
because
I
she
tried
was
out
very
like
dark
that.
complected.
15 minutes.
I don't know.
Plastic bag and marinate.
She never
for
liked my
24
sister.
hours. So like the night
And she
before.
would hit her, and I would be in the closet crying.
Preparation.
And I'll to
Yeah,
this
that
day
definitely
never
takes
forgive
24
myself for
hours.
not going out and stopping
Well, I
it.
guess
Yeah. You were the little sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really doesn't. That's good.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe she was hit as a little girl. Your mom.
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think that, well, Stella was very strong-minded, and she would argue with my
Oh,
mother.
okay.
And I learned real fast to go, mm-hmm.
Yeah, no argue. Yeah. So let's see. How long was it after the divorce before you met Rollin? Or before you? I mean, because I know you knew him before.
Well, he was Budwick's best friend.
Yeah.
They worked together.
Yeah.
So I knew Rollin, and he used to come over and, with the family and do stuff. And I had no idea why he was coming over to like me. So it wasn't too long after I got a divorce that we got married.
Yeah. He was such a gentleman.
Oh, I always liked
He
him.
was such a gentleman.
Yeah, he really was. And he loved the grandkids. He
Yeah.
loved you kids.
He was really a sweet guy.
Yep.
I liked Rollin.
Yeah. Loved Allison and Ellen so much.
Yeah.
I remember being at Christopher and Jenny's house when they lived, where was it? Ohio, or I think, something. I think that was where Christopher's job was. And I remember going to visit Christopher, and Christopher answering the phone, and he says, "No, Dad, I didn't know that Mom was marrying your best friend."
Oh.
And I thought, God, that's weird. It sounds weird, but it's the truth, so I couldn't argue.
Yeah.
And he loved my family.
Yeah.
He really did.
He really did.
Yeah.
Gosh.
He was like overwhelmed and also ready for it.
Yeah. He wanted
We
to
were
be
all
a
just
part
like
of it.
so loud and
I've heard this
moved fast.
more
and he
times
was
than I
like,
saw Rollin, he was just like, what in the
yeah. He was like wide-eyed.
Whoa, baby. Yeah. Yeah. He
And
had blue eyes, right? Didn't he?
oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the
And,
blue
and
eyes.
the woman that he married before I came along, Joan, she has 3 daughters. And when Joan died, they milked him for the money. And finally, they would call, and they'd call and ask for Jerry. And I said, you know what? Enough's enough. You're not going to ask for any more.
Uh-oh.
And so that was the end of that. But it went on for like
They were coming for him.
2 years.
Yeah. Calling. They would call the
They'd
house
call. Yeah, they call the house.
for money.
Well, he paid for. She has 2 daughters, maybe 3 daughters, and the oldest daughter was the worst, and he paid for her to go get her master's at Berkeley.
Mm.
And then the youngest one married a cowboy, and he didn't have any money, so he paid for them. He paid cash for them to have a little ranchette in northern Colorado.
Whoa.
So we're talking, in those days, quite a bit of money.
I
Yeah.
mean, the ranch property is serious.
Property, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. His daughters.
Yeah.
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 So it was okay, but when they kept asking more and more, and
Yeah.
I said,
Did you like being married a second time?
oh, he was such a nice guy.
Yeah, obviously, of Roland was great.
Yeah. It was nice because the kids were grown and, you know, we didn't have all that.
Yeah.
I never thought that I'd get married again. I swore I'd never get married again. And then I was surprised when, you know, we hooked up. But yeah, he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, it's
As a matter of fact, the wife that he was married to, Joan, was a real estate person that he met when he was in. He used to travel a lot, and he was of course, in a bar, and she was in a bar in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Hey.
And she was in realty. She was very smart and quite a businesswoman.
Wow.
So she had an interest in different things, and she owns a set of apartments. And of course, I think there's 8. When she died, he got a heritage. He got 1/8 of a business of these apartments. Mm-hmm. So when he died, I get it. Mm-hmm. And so I get about $2,000 a year from it.
In the apartments?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so then the son, Scott, it never ends. She had one son named Scott, and then she has 2 daughters. Stephanie, one that he bought the little ranchette for, and Margot, I think is her name. And anyway, they just take and take and take. So anyway, the apartments, I have an 1/8 of an interest in that, like I told you, and I get a couple of $1,000 a year. So Scott called me, and he said that somebody had made an offer on the apartments, which sounded really great, and that he wanted to make sure that, you know, he had to get consent from every one of the shareholders. And I don't know anything about business, but so I called Mark and had him take care of it. But so they got all the consent, but there was 2 old guys that didn't want to give consent, and it was because of the income tax. So the deal fell through, and so that was too bad. It would have been like $40,000. I would have gotten.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And Mark didn't like the idea. Oh, I know the lawyer that was representing the Scott Troyer, and who has the 2 major people that own the apartments. They hired this lawyer, and he was Mark said the lawyer wanted his fees before the thing was settled. He said that's very unusual.
Not good.
Son, yeah.
So
Not
there's
good.
something wrong there. And so he said, Mom, I don't think you should do it.
Yeah.
And so I was one of the ones that didn't do it.
Not good.
Yeah. He says that's really unusual for a lawyer to do that.
It's so great that we have a lawyer and a bunch of doctors in our family.
Yeah.
I feel like we get so much internal help.
Yeah, Mark, man, that lawyer thing's key.
Yeah.
You never know when that's going to come up.
Yeah. My mom has talked to him before.
Yeah.
Helpful. You guys, I'm fading. I think I like to help clean up, and then I need to go
Yeah.
home. I know this day is far from over, but I'm gonna make it over.
I'm going to have a root beer float, though.
Really? You're gonna do it?
Ooh, that sounds really good.
I'm going to have to have that a little bit.
Good.
You want a root beer float, Grandma?